And we had another cross-section of students. More interestingly, in that demographic, we talked to university presidents. And one of the university presidents, as we were saying, hey, your students are concerned about what kind of jobs they'll get upon graduation. And does that concern you? And we had a private college president say, future employability is none of our concern.
Tuned in to the Money Script podcast. Today we will share strategies to help you grow your financial literacy and improve your money script. I'll be back with some important announcements. Until then, enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Money Script podcast. It's your host, Johannes Harrison. We are well on our way into season 5. That's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're still here. Thanks to all of you. I'm very excited to be with each and every one of you today. I have another exciting guest, and we are going to talk about student loans. Wait. Don't turn it off. It'll be good. There'll be some good news that we have about student loans. We're going to talk about student loans. We're going to talk about paying off debt. We're going to talk about how to improve your behaviors and just some of your thoughts and actions around managing those pesky student loans. You know, here's the thing. You did the time. So now you have to pay it back, or maybe not. We'll talk about that too. So I'd like to invite and welcome Adam Carroll to the Money Script podcast. Adam, how are you today?
I am awesome, Johannes. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be with you.
I'm excited to be with you because you are an expert on this topic. So I'm actually really just excited to learn from you. I mean, usually for my normal listeners, ongoing listeners, you're probably wondering, well, what's the hot topic today? Well, the hot topic is student loans. There is one thing that did happen that I'll mention, and we'll talk about it on another podcast as we get closer to applying for FAFSA for next year. But if you're watching the news or happen to see it come across your headlines, they did change Congress in the last budget. They did change some of the rules on FAFSA, and they claim they're making it easier for us to fill out FAFSA forms, eliminating almost 36 questions, which sounds good. There was an editorial in the Wall Street Journal this weekend that said, it's good for some, not so great for others, but isn't that the way it is with everything? But we will break all of that down on a future episode. But today I want to talk with Adam specifically, because Adam did an entire documentary on student loan debt called Broke, Busted, and Disgusted, which just the name alone just tells you how a lot of us feel about student loans. So Adam, I'd like to just ask you, what led you to making this documentary?
Well, I love the question, Johannes, because it was kind of a labor of love. For the past 20 years or so, I've made my living as a professional speaker. And the majority of my talks have been on college campuses. So I've toured as a guest lecturer for 20 years, been on 750 college campuses.
I don't have that.
I realized that everywhere I went, I would ask students, how much do you have in student loan debt? And can you guess the number one answer that people gave me? Yeah.
Okay.
The majority of them said, I don't know.
Yeah, that was probably the number one answer. Yeah.
And I was so shocked by it, Johannes, that I was asking people, hey, give me ballpark best guess. And they were like, I honestly, I couldn't tell you. And so when I started speaking on colleges, rates were, or student loan debt was probably hovering in the 30 to 40 grand range. And over the course of 10 or 15 years, it went to 60 and then 80. I met people with 100 grand, 125 grand for an undergrad degree, met people with as much as 300,000, in grad school and med school, law school degrees. And now it's higher than that, for some people. So what inspired me to do the documentary on student loan debt was this feeling that people were going to be broke, busted, and disgusted, but they didn't even know it yet. And so hence the name.
Hence the name. Okay. Got it. Well, no, I know that firsthand. My wife had 6-figure student loan debt. My son has 5-figure student loan debt. And I've shared the story on the podcast multiple times. When it comes to debt, we only accumulate it in 3 ways. I mean, now there's subcategories of all these 3 ways. There's 3 methods that we acquire debt. The first is there's an emergency and you don't have the money to pay for it.
Yeah.
Someone's always standing by to lend it, whether it's a friend or that friend's last name is Visa, MasterCard, or American Express.
Amen.
The second way that we accumulate debt is when there are things in our life that are important that become urgent and we're not willing to say no. That was me with my son. I said, you're going to college, you're going to college, you're going to college. However, I wasn't doing a good job of saving for college.
Yeah.
And then he said, Dad, I got accepted into college. And I did not have the guts to tell him no because it was important and now it's urgent. And
Yeah.
Sally was right there. She said, how much do you need? And we said, all of it.
Yeah.
And then the third way we accumulate debt is just by spending tomorrow's money today. Okay. Probably the most prolific way for us as Americans. We like to do that. Oh, I'm going to get a bonus, or I'll just pay it off after Christmas. For those of you that are listening to this episode shortly after the holiday season of 2023, if you find yourself in that situation, I have news for you. Christmas is coming again. Okay. So you can either plan for it or you can wait till it becomes important and urgent and you're not willing to say no to Chanel, Prada, Dick's Sporting Goods, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, when it comes to college debt, I mean, we have clients that have close to $500,000
Right.
of student loan debt, because we work with a lot of individuals in the medical field.
Sure.
And, whether from their bachelor's to their graduate degrees, med school, and then spending 3 to 4 years in residency, only making $50,000-$60,000 a year with
Yep.
$300,000-$500,000 worth of student loan debt. And fortunately, the laws have changed, or the rules around the federally backed debt has changed a little bit to make it not as taxing on them. But I remember, going back pre-COVID, where while that person was in residency, their debt would still be growing.
Yeah.
They'd be out of
Yeah.
school, but their debt's still growing because the interest was still accumulating on that debt. So yes, broke, busted, and disgusted. I have quite a few clients that can definitely relate to that. So tell me, as you went through the documentary,
Yeah.
what were some of the commonalities, other than not knowing? What were some of the other commonalities that you found with students around the country?
We did 3 separate groups and we interviewed high school students. Johan started there, started asking them, hey, what does college mean to you? What does it look like? Where do you see yourself going? And we had this cross section of students, all walks of life, all socioeconomic groups in different high schools. And many of them, the majority of them said, well, college is your future. College is a way to get ahead. It's a way to get out of whatever scenario you're in, or to get into the scenario you want to be in. And so I thought that was an interesting answer from a lot of them. We went to the college students directly and said, okay, what does college mean to you? How much debt will you have? And we had another cross section of students. More interestingly, in that demographic, we talked to university presidents. And one of the university presidents, as we were saying, hey, your students are concerned about what kind of jobs they'll get upon graduation. And does that concern you? And we had a private college president say, future employability is none of our concern. Can you imagine?
Whoa. What? Whoa.
I was like, hey, you're on camera, like this, we are rolling.
Crazy.
I said, what if not future employability are you after? And he said, we're creating well-rounded citizens in a democracy. And
wow.
So yeah, there were answers like that. And then we went to the graduate.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused here. I thought that the purpose of college was to improve employability. I thought that was it. I thought that was the only purpose of college.
Apparently not. To this individual, he said flat out, future employability, none of our concern. It was all about, creating these well-rounded students, well-rounded citizens in a democracy. And, this is a school.
Broke, okay.
Yeah, they're broke. It was a school that was $30,000, $35,000 a year, tuition to go to school.
That's 100. That's 6 figures when you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. Not including room and board, right? I mean, so we learned a lot. The one group, I think, Johans, that really speaks to being broke, busted, and disgusted were the graduates that we talked to. And we would say, hey, what is it like paying back student loans? Or what have your loans done for you? And a couple of the folks got really teary-eyed and said, I'm afraid I'll die with it. I'm afraid I'll never be out of it. We had a woman who she had 300,000 in student loans, and she was a doctor of veterinary medicine. And
Oh, I
the
know some
challenge,
of those. Mhm.
yeah, and the challenge for her and many of them, and you could include probably med school students and chiropractors and others, is that they fall in love with their future significant other who is also in that amount of student loan debt.
Yes, you know who you are if you're listening.
Right,
Close
right.
to $1 million of student loan debt because they
And
fell in love while
and
in school.
and it feels somewhat oppressive. This particular woman, she said, her minimum payment was $1,200 a month. So think about, what you've got to do to make any amount of money, but enough to pay 1,200, which could be a house payment, certainly a rent payment for most people. But I said, well, how much is the debt? She said 300,000 at 8%. So if you do the math, that's $24,000 a year. If we're just
It
talking
means her
simple interest,
balance isn't moving.
it's growing by 10 grand a year. And we started going down this path with her of what is the plan. And she said, I'm on, hopefully I will get a debt forgiveness at some point down the road. And the problem with that is, many of those folks who encounter debt forgiveness will then have a tax liability at the end of the
Mhm.
forgiveness. So no matter what, she probably would owe even 80, $90,000 in taxes if she were to have it forgiven. So this was the challenge for us in the documentary was people were like, okay, you've highlighted the problem. What's the solution? And candidly, at the time, I didn't know what the solution was short of, hey, you've got to really go at your loans hardcore and get them knocked out because, as we know, as some of your listeners know, when you're talking about debt levels that large, the interest expense on the debt can eat you alive.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we have to get to the principal and start chewing through the principal in order to minimize the interest expense.
Oh, yeah. Now, is that where the shred method came from? Which came first, shred method or the documentary?
The documentary came first, and
Okay.
then the shred method came second. And what I realized is that, most people, when they're paying back their student loans, Johans, they're paying minimum payments, maybe a little bit
Oh, yeah.
more, maybe a
Mhm.
little bit more. And, we've worked with folks who will say, well, I have an extra $250 or $500 a month that I'm sending to my student loans. But if they're not really intentional about how the payback happens, and by that I mean saying all $500 of this goes towards this particular loan
Exactly.
to
Mhm.
knock it out, what the servicers will do is they'll disperse all $500 across your 16
Proportionally,
loans,
they sure do. Mhm.
and that is to their benefit, not to your benefit. And so we teach people how to take that extra amount, and we show them where it comes from and how to leverage it right, but go after those debts one by one and really knock them out in no time flat, so that we can play the lender's game against the lender, essentially.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Now is the shred method, is it similar to the more popular methods of the avalanche payments or what's the other one, snowball
Snowball.
payments? Is that the strategy?
It would be similar to snowball and avalanche, but I would say in our own vernacular, if the snowball is a vehicle, the shred method is like putting nitrous oxide in the gas tank of that vehicle.
Oh,
So
I
we
thought you
have
were going to say it's the snow plow method.
yeah,
You
yeah.
said vehicle. I went to snow plow. I was like,
It
okay,
could be
so this
that.
is
Maybe we might trademark that.
there you go. You
Um,
might want to.
we we show people how to do snowball, but to do it at such an elevated, sped up process that it kind of blows people away how fast they can be out of debt.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, you're right. I have to admit, listeners, I haven't played with the shred method at all. I learned about it as I was doing the background research for this podcast. But for those of you that know me and have heard me speak on this topic, I am a huge fan of coming up with ways to dramatically reduce your cost of borrowing.
Yeah.
Because here's what we have to admit: if we've borrowed money, it's done. What's done is done. You've already borrowed it. You can't
Yeah.
unborrow the money. It's not like you can go and say, "Hey, just kidding. I didn't get a job, so I don't want to pay for the student loan anymore." I mean, you can, but that's not going to do well for the rest of your life because
Right.
and it's very hard to bankrupt student loan debt. There's that too.
100%.
I mean, it happens to a few people. I mean, I know a few people, I can count them on one finger, that have been able to achieve bankrupting student loan debt.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's a path that you want to sign up for. For the rest of us, if you're able to find gainful employment and you have some money coming in and you want to come up with a strategy to pay off your debt faster, yes, an extra $50, an extra $100, extra $250 can go a long way towards reducing your debt, especially if you know which debt to apply it to.
Yeah.
For those of you that listened to us throughout COVID, one of our mantras were for student loan debt that, ignore the public debt for now, since it's at zero interest and zero payment. And if you have private debt that's still at 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12%, throw all of your money at that. And I heard from a lot of you came out of COVID with your private loans paid off.
Amazing.
Because that's where that payment that you used to be sending to the public loan, you are now sending it to the private loan. Now you can take that money and apply it to the public loan. And I encourage all of you, we'll leave some links here in the show notes of how you can learn more about the SHRED method and see if it's a process that can help you get out of debt faster. And like Adam said, really just use the bank's own rules to your advantage, because they have laws that they have to follow when it comes to extra payments. It's just a lot of us as consumers, we don't know what those are.
We don't know. It's the ignorance of how those payments are applied, how it's processed. It's just a general, I know you talk about this all the time, Johannes, but it's a general financial literacy that we all need to understand. And if I may, there's 2 or 3 principles that are central to this working. The first one, very simply, and I know you talk about this all the time, you have to have more money at the end of the month, not more month at the end of your money. I mean, flat out, you've got to spend less than you make.
Absolutely.
And then the second part of that is understanding, what do you do with the extra? Because what most people do is they'll stock money in checking or savings. And we have a theory at the SHRED method, which is lazy idle money that's sitting in savings or checking especially, but lazy idle money that's sitting in checking is dangerous money. Because if you had an extra 1,000 or $2,000 in checking, what might you do with it?
Oh yeah, I don't like the word extra. I don't.
Yeah,
Extra means that it doesn't have a home.
exactly.
And if it doesn't have a home, then I'm more than likely going to find a way to spend it.
100%.
I will. I mean, as for those of you that caught the little change in the camera, if you're watching on YouTube, extra money for me, that's a new battery, son. Talking to you, new battery. But yeah, no, extra money. I think that conceptually in our minds,
Yeah,
extra means unimportant.
right.
So if we have something extra and it doesn't have a home, then it's like, it's not that important. I can just let it do nothing, or I can let it go do something that is not going to be as meaningful.
Right.
But what I hear you say is that it's not, let's not call it extra. Yes, you want to have more money than month, but then you want a home, you want a place for that those additional dollars to go,
Totally.
so that it can add more value to your financial plan long term.
And the key is that it's going to the most efficient place it possibly can, which, if it is in checking, one of the things that we know is that if folks say, oh, well, I typically keep however much extra, whatever a number that would be relative to your audience, 500, 1,000, $5,000 extra in checking. It's too easy to go into Costco and walk out with a bounce house or a kayak, because you're like, well, I had extra money, so I bought it. And what we're doing is saying, okay, if you have extra, let's figure out where it goes and let's put it there in the most efficient manner possible, but know that you'd still have access to money if you needed it. And there's a big difference in our world of available money versus accessible money. So
True.
Available money would be money sitting in a checking or savings, or you're safe at home, and you could go grab it. You could take it out of the bank. You can look at it, count it, makes you feel good. Accessible money might be, you have a line of credit that's available should you need it, or maybe you have money in a cash value life insurance policy that's there as equity should you need it. That's accessible money. Or this would be the last case scenario, but you have a credit card in case you absolutely needed it. That's accessible money. But in the meantime, what we're trying to do is free up cash flow by blasting away the debts that we can, which in this case would be the student loans, or certainly credit cards, car loans, and eventually the mortgage.
Yeah, oh, indeed. It is very exciting when I'm able to run those reports and see how much money, if they go through a plan, like you're saying, how much money that they will not have to spend
Yeah.
on interest. I don't like to say money they saved on interest, because we don't know what you're going to do with the money yet.
Good
But this is
point.
just money you're not going to
spending.
have to commit to interest payments, and now you can commit that money somewhere else.
Yes. And on to that point, one of the other core philosophies we have, and this is more of a truth, it's a reality, but the two greatest expenses that we have in life are taxes and the interest expense on debt. For
Mhm.
most people, they will pay the most in taxes. And think about, property tax, income tax, sales tax, gas tax,
Tax,
um,
tax.
yeah, tax on your social security, taxed income already.
Like I said,
Um,
tax. Yeah. I pay taxes on my tax. I pay Social Security taxes, and then when I collect my Social Security, I pay taxes on it. So now I pay taxes on taxes.
taxes on taxes on taxes. And then the other piece of that is the interest expense on debt, which is, and this is one of those things that a lot of people, again, don't really understand how this works, but 6.6% is the magic percentage rate, that if you borrowed some amount of money at 6.6% and you took the entire time you were given to pay it off, you will have paid for that amount of money twice. So if you borrow $250,000 in student loan money at 6.6% over 25 years or 35, 21 is the average amount of time it takes to pay off a student loan, from what I understand. But at 25 years, that 250 will become 500,000 that you've paid back. And that is the
Well,
interest expense on debt. That's like, it's weakening us financially in the end.
ladies and gentlemen that are looking to buy a house, as we record this podcast, the average interest rate is 6.6% for a 30-year mortgage.
There you go.
So if that means that you are buying a $500,000, $300,000, $1 million home at 6.6, and you only make the scheduled payments, you are going to pay twice as much for that house.
Yep. Scary.
It is. It is. And you'll be surprised what an extra $50, $100, or $150 can do, especially if applied at the right time.
Indeed.
That's important too. Gonna have some, oh, I'm just going to make one extra payment on my mortgage. I'm like, no, spread that out over the year,
Yeah.
because your interest is calculated every single month based on the balance that month.
Yep.
So if you wait until December to make an extra payment, that means you missed out on lowering the interest all year long.
That's
Adam,
exactly
we
right.
can talk about this for hours, but we can't, because it's a podcast. So we got to wrap things up a bit. So I want to, before we go into our favorite question that we ask all of our guests, I want to know if you could just share with everyone a little bit more about how they can learn more about the shred method.
The best way to find out more is to visit theshredmethod.com. And on that site, Johannes, we've got a 30-minute masterclass that basically will walk you straight through the process. If you don't have 30 minutes, you can go to the savings calculator on our page and literally put in your numbers, income, expense, what your debt loads are, and it will kick out, how quickly you could be out of debt and what you would not spend in interest. I'm not going to say save, but what you would not spend in interest if you were to pay that off. And it's a free service. So the calculator itself will tell you what it is. And if that's intriguing to you, we would love to spend 20 minutes on the phone or on a Zoom walking through your exact numbers and show you what is really possible. And if it works for you at that point, by all means, sign up, join our community. But I'll tell you this, we're an education company and a coaching company. And then we are a software company third. So it's education first. We believe education should be free. So we're going to pass it out as much as we can. We're a coaching company second, because we believe, just as you do, everyone has money scripts, and we have to begin to redefine things like, oh, well, I'll always be in debt. I'll always have a car loan. I'll always have a mortgage. Or as one of my friends grew up hearing and believed, we'll never have a lot of money, so we might as well spend it now, because we'll
Ooh.
never have a lot of money, so we might as well spend it now. So we coach to
Hurts
that.
my heart.
right? And then last but not least is the software. And we're really building, in the nature of full disclosure, we're building a software company, but our software company exists to help people create freedom and flexibility in their lives. And that's really what the software does for folks.
Beautiful. Well, again, we'll have links in the show notes for everyone. So speaking of money scripts, and since you understand the lingo so well,
Yeah.
with all of our podcast guests, we like to ask a question of them to learn more about their money scripts. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast, this is the Money Script Podcast. I'm Johannes Harrison. I am a financial advisor by day, podcaster by day also. And this is, as Adam was saying, this is where I like to educate individuals. This is your freemium service that you get from me and all the guests that we bring to the show to help you grow your financial literacy. Now, a money script is an idea or a learned behavior that most of us develop very early on in life. And it's how we think about money. It's the relationship we have with money. It's the less than a second of the time that it takes for your brain to process how to make a financial decision. You know, when your car breaks down, like, I'm just go get a new one, or versus fixing it, what have you. Your brain is it's trying to keep you alive, number one, but it's also trying not to waste your time and help you to use your past experiences to get you to a decision, but doesn't always know if that's the right or wrong decision. So with that, we like to ask all of our guests about their money script by asking Adam, what is your first memory of money?
Ooh. My first memory of money, this comes, it comes to the top of my mind very easily because I tell this story all the time to audiences. Um, I used to go on vacations with my parents when I was young. They loved to travel. They would take my sister and I to all different places. And we were living in California. We went to the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. And I remember my dad had given me $20. He gave me a $20 bill and my sister a $20 bill. And I was probably 6, maybe 7 years of age. And he said, "This money is for souvenirs, or it's for ice cream, or it's for candy in the candy shop, but it's yours. You can spend it as you see fit. When it's gone, it's gone. And there's no more," right? He was a big believer in letting us make the decisions and, empower us to have our own agency around money. And as a 6-year-old, $20 seemed like a
You're
gajillion
balling.
dollars.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was rolling deep, so I've got the $20 bill in my back pocket, and you know how young kids are, Johannes. You wanna feel it. You're touching it all the time. My hands are getting sweaty. I'm just excited about that 20 in my back pocket. And at some point, I pulled my hand out and the 20 flipped out. And we got into the candy store and I'm choosing all this candy and I'm going up to pay and I'm excited about getting that $20 bill out and it wasn't there. And I lost it. I freaked out. And I remember my sister, this is my earliest money memory. My sister said, "How could you be so careless with money?
Mm,
How could you be you're so careless with money?" And fast forward, I got to 18, 19, 20, 21. I graduated from college. I had 30 some $1,000s in student loans. I had 8 grand in credit card debt. I was upside down on my car. I mean, I did all the dumb things with money that you would do because my script was, "I'm careless with money." And it wasn't until I engineered my thoughts around money and, as T. Harv Eker from Secrets to the Millionaire Mind says, "If you want to change the fruits, you must first change the roots."
mhm.
And so I went back to the roots of money for me and reconnoitered my thinking around it. And today, money comes easily and frequently. Money is my friend. I enjoy it. It enjoys me. We have good company together, but we're both very intelligent about how we use each other. So,
Mm,
the relationship has been repaired, but certainly my early money memory was, I am so careless with money.
mm. Beautiful story, Adam. Beautiful story. I'm very excited to share that one with all of our guests because I am confident that many of you can relate to that carelessness with money. Because for a second there, I thought Adam was telling my story, especially when you talk about 18, 19, 20 years old. Oh, I had all those mistakes too. Upside down on
Yeah,
my car. I had my brother co-sign for a car for me and I still was missing payments. And he's calling me, if you don't make your car payment. And I didn't understand. I'm like, what's the
right,
big deal? Yeah, it was a big deal. It was
right.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. I still love you. I appreciate you. Um, But as you were saying, having those daily mantras to yourself,
Mhm.
that money comes easily to you. I remember, just to share one more story, I remember growing up, my parents, because of the financial situation they were in, not even wanting to go to the mailbox,
Mm.
because in the mail, it was probably a bill
Bills.
or a late notice or this or that. And I want to give a shout out to the musical genius, I'll give him that, of Drake, because he created a song. And in that song, I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, envelopes in the mail, grab a letter opener, might be another check, ain't no telling. And I remember when my mindset shifted from fear of what's in the mailbox
Mm.
to excitement,
Yes,
the check that might be in the mail.
totally.
So to all of our listeners out there, I hope there's nothing but checks in your mailbox. And we will see you next time here on the Money Script Podcast. Thank you, Adam, for joining us. Don't forget to tell a friend, tell a friend, to tell a friend to get your dose of financial literacy. We have over 100 episodes. Okay. No excuses. We have over 100 episodes, and it's not just me. There's so many financial literacy podcasts out there. Consume something more than just music. Consume something more than just news. Consume something that's going to help you grow and learn and develop your money script. So until next time, everyone take care. We'll see you soon.
I'm back. Wasn't that a great show? I hope you learned something. I know I did. Now, before you go trying anything you heard today, remember, it is not intended to be specific tax or legal advice. If you need that, go see a CPA or an attorney. If you would like any complimentary consultation with a knowledgeable advisor, visit moneyscript.com and schedule a 15-minute consultation. Want Johans to come speak at your next event? Go to the Money Script website for that too. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. MoneyScript Wealth Management is a registered financial advisory service in multiple states. Want to learn more? Get the full disclosure on our website, moneyscript.com.